everybody, it's Mark Zweig, and I'm back here in the studio with my buddy Eric Howerton for another episode of Big Talk about Small Business.
Business.
Do I have to say business? I know that's how you say it.
Biznass.
It is funny, but it doesn't come naturally to me.
It is not.
No.
I'm always about that business.
Yeah, you are about that business. It's kind of like Mississippi. You're supposed to say it. If you're from Mississippi, you call it Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Yeah.
Missing the sisses.
Mississippi.
Missing the sisses.
Yeah, Mississippi. Where are you from? How you like Mississippi?
Mississippi.
Yeah. Business. We're doing business. We're not in Mississippi.
That's it.
We're in Arkansas, as some people call it.
It's not called that. It's Arkansas.
Doesn't that drive you crazy?
It does.
It's like when people call Illinois, Illinois.
Don't pronounce the S.
Like, what is wrong with you people? Do you, live in a cave or something?
I've been told I live in the cave down there.
Have you?
Yeah. You know, when COVID happened, I didn't find out about it. I found out about COVID from Starbucks.
Really?
Yeah. I went up to get me a refill of my coffee, my decaf coffee at that. And she's like, okay, I have to give you a new cup. And I'm like, why? And she said, because of the virus.
What virus?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what? Okay, that's fine. I thought she had one. I didn't know what was going on. And then my business partner calls me and is like, hey, man, we're going to have to do something about this. It's like stuff's hitting the fan. You know, right after I bought that coffee, he calls me and we talk about it. And he's like, we're going to have to make a decision. Like, do we let folks work from home? What are we going to do? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's like, it specifically said, do you live under a freaking rock?
Just say, no, I'm just working so much and so intensely. I don't know what the hell's going on.
You know,
right?
To be honest,
truthfully, I'm sure that was the case.
That is
for you.
the case. I haven't watched the news. And it's a little bit, I feel a little bit, I don't know, uncomfortable about saying this. But anybody I say it to actually appreciates it. I literally have not watched the news for probably about 25 years.
Wow. Well, ignorance is bliss. It's a lot different from my situation where it's on really from 6 a.m. until after my wife goes to sleep in multiple spots in the house.
Oh, the news is in multiple spots. I thought you were saying your wife is sleeping in multiple spots in the house.
No. But I have to turn it off after she goes to sleep.
Because she watches it.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, it's
overload.
You know, you mentioned the other day is like, you know, if you just watch that stuff all the time, you know, do you gain much by focusing so much on competition, on the macroeconomics? It doesn't really matter. Like if you're an entrepreneur, your job is to power through and adapt or navigate or whatever it might be. Yeah. And that's kind of been that's just keep my head down, keep going, dude.
I get it, and
just make another sale, bro.
You made a good point about the, focusing too much on competition in the external environment. The other thing is it makes you just negative and depressed. Totally. Because the news is never good.
No.
Okay?
No.
There's tons of good stuff happening, but you'll never hear about that.
Yeah.
It's not that interesting to people, I guess. They'd rather hear about suffering and idiotic stuff.
And the only big news that I just noticed we have ghosts up on our screen.
Well, it's the Halloween show.
Oh, scary.
Ooh.
But the only thing that bubbles up in the news that are like success, good stories, are like just the diamonds that come up to the surface, like Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, it's like, but there's never a story about how relentlessly difficult it was for them to get to a certain point, right? Like the sleepless nights, nobody talks about that. It's just like how innovative they are. And then everybody thinks that, I can be an innovative entrepreneur and be on the news and be a billionaire so easily. Like it was easy for them. It wasn't. It was a freaking utter bloodbath with everybody saying no and all kinds of obstacles. It's the same story for every entrepreneur.
Most of the time it is.
Yeah. I mean, do you know an entrepreneur that's had it easy? I don't know.
Get rich quick scheme? No,
I don't either.
Well, it helps if you start out with a whole bunch of money. Maybe that makes it a little easier, but maybe it doesn't. This week, in the last week, we've seen like 3 electric motorcycle manufacturers go bankrupt. They all had tons of money. I think they started with a lot of money.
Yeah.
They just don't develop any discipline and scrappiness.
Yeah.
They just burn through it, and that's it then.
And in most cases, it's obviously not their money.
No, that's what I'm saying. All this outside capital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the Harley-Davidson Livewire debacle is really something else. I mean, they have just burned through several $100 million worth of capital, and their sales are just not anywhere. I think they sold like 400 or less than that.
Jeez.
And their forecast was 10,000. I mean, it's
a big mess.
It's horrible. They couldn't have done it if they weren't part of Harley-Davidson that had all the money they put into that.
Well, it also kind of goes, obviously Harley's got a hell of a distribution network.
Yeah.
Brand name, but even, and it's going to be funny because I imagine there's going to be like a non-known brand that can kind of probably innovate in that sector and just crush it.
Hopefully, the big guys move too slow or they make huge blunders.
Or they take
Harley's
shortcuts.
really having problems.
And they're not focused on that.
Yep.
If you have somebody that's like focused and they know electric bikes, they know the audience, they know what they want, how do they innovate, just stay in that vein.
They just totally miss the market with overpowered, massive bikes that don't look like what Harley-Davidsons are supposed to look like. They'd have just taken their giant rocking chair cruisers and made them electrified, but look the same. I think they would have done a whole lot better.
Could have been, yeah.
But the other thing is people don't ride electric motorcycles that far. They use them for short commutes. And that's where they really stand out. And you don't need something that big.
Yeah.
It's just, they just totally miss the market.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, it's interesting stuff. Well, what are we going to talk about today, buddy?
Overcoming the myths of marketing.
Okay. I like that.
Which is obviously, we're going to have to be self-disciplined to not go above on this one because we can go forever about the myths of marketing.
Boy, no kidding.
But you know what? It's funny. I do have a little bit of a history story that's semi-related to this.
Oh, good. I love your history stories.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you. So this one's about...
So when you weren't watching the news, you were reading books about history of entrepreneurship.
Okay, so honestly,
that's the truth.
Yeah,
I know.
No, that's the honest truth. Like
I know.
Like it doesn't mean I don't read or study or learn. Right, but
you're focused.
The best book, and this is where my history lessons come from, is that American Entrepreneur book, and I've told folks about it.
Yep.
Before, but I did start reading about the history of entrepreneurship, and that's inspiring, and it actually gives me a lot of information about, number one, I was reading it because it made me feel okay about myself and the way that I think. Because in the normal world that is focused on all these big news things and then puts everybody in these little boxes, I really didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. And I feel bad about myself because I'm like, I don't fit in.
Everybody loves you in spite of that.
Well, I know, but I love you too, man. But at 11 p.m. when I'm trying to go to bed, I'm like, I don't fit in anywhere. Like, what am I going to do with myself? I'm like, why do I think this way? Why do I do this? And, like reading about entrepreneurship and understanding these entrepreneurs, it doesn't make me feel like, oh, it's okay to be a squirrel.
Yeah.
To always, to not like the details. And it's okay.
Sure.
If that's...
As long as somebody else is back there worrying about it, right?
No, absolutely.
Part of entrepreneurship is building the right team.
Hell yeah, it is.
Focusing on your skills and then getting people that shore you up in the stuff you don't like to do or aren't good at.
And admitting...
That's a huge part of it.
Totally. And admitting what you're weak at.
Yep.
But then being willing to do the things that you're weak at until you can find somebody that can take it over.
That's right, too. You got to do it all at first, right?
You do. Yeah. And then sometimes you got to do it all over again when people leave because of whatever negative thoughts that they're thinking when they go to bed, and they're thinking they deserve more or should earn more or they have better opportunities elsewhere.
Yep.
Seeing a lot of folks make that mistake a lot of times too.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so I was always learning. I just wasn't watching the daily news.
Yeah, I got it.
Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
To me. So anyway, so speaking of marketing, like what I love about this story is have you ever heard of Procter Gamble?
Yeah, have I ever heard of it? Greatest brands in the world that they have.
Absolutely.
And they command a premium price, and they sell more of it, what they sell, than anybody else in most of the categories they compete in.
Yeah, so, it's funny, like when you see a company like that, a brand, and then a company that has all these fantastic brands, it's like we don't really think about where they started, how they started, and all that back in the early days. Everybody likes to skip past the bad stuff, just like we were talking about, like with Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, right? But how they got going is interesting to me, right? Is because of there was so much wasted byproducts. So, for example, in Cincinnati, major pork production capital of the United States back in like the mid 1800s, right around before the Civil War. And so there's all this fat in all the byproduct of the animals, and it's just wasted.
Right.
And so they came in, and people had started using these. And so what Procter & Gamble did, which was basically
made soap out of it.
Yeah, they were semi-related. It was they were brother-in-laws. Is what they were.
I see.
Yeah, and so they got together and they're like, hey, let's take this byproduct and let's make lard, candles, and soap out of it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so when the Civil War came, the Union needed a lot of soap, obviously, and so that's how really Procter & Gamble got into the business. They were providing to the military.
Did not know that.
Yeah. And so that's how they became that's how they got their distribution going and whatnot, and made them not really a household name at that time, but established their network and whatever. But what made their name?
Gave them a base business.
Gave them their base business. They were making soap.
Right.
A lot of soap.
Yeah.
And so they actually, one of them encouraged their engineer, soap maker, they want to have the purest form of soap, and they don't want to use olive oil in it, which is really expensive. And so they challenged him, and then they were making it. He was spinning it, the soap, when they were making it in production, and it ended up, they overdid it.
Yeah.
By mistake.
They whipped it up.
They whipped it up too much, and it floated. And then that gave, and talking about marketing, that gave Procter & Gamble, dude, our soap is so pure, it floats. And that was the birth of Ivory soap.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, isn't that cool as hell? And then, so here's what I love about it. So this was like in 1878 when they came up with that Ivory soap. And then here's what P&G did, though. They became the leader, the first ones that really put money behind marketing and advertising.
Yeah.
They spent $400,000 on advertising by 1905. $400,000.
It's a lot of money back then.
A lot of money, and that's from like 1880, basically, to 1905. 400 G's in advertising. This is at a time when nobody was doing any marketing and advertising.
Yep.
But they infused it, and then they became the household name. Ivory soap. And then they've continued that process. Like the greatest marketing agency account on the planet is most likely Procter & Gamble.
Yeah.
Because they spend ad dollars.
Sure.
Even though Todd's household, Aubrey's household, have all these household name brands, guess what they're still doing? Investing in advertising and marketing.
My brother worked for Procter & Gamble.
Did he?
His company was acquired. He worked for Norwich Eaton Pharmaceutical, and he was in charge of Pepto-Bismol.
Nice.
And Chloraseptic. And they got acquired by P&G, and so he worked for them for a short time. But it was too conforming for him.
Mm-hmm.
But then when he went in the pharmaceutical ad agency business, he was really the first guy who started doing things like putting Pepto-Bismol in medicine cabinets in movies. Mm-hmm. So when people would open it up, they'd see the Pepto bottle.
Nice.
Invented that.
Did he really?
Yeah, and he also invented, the pharmaceutical advertising that we see today with all the disclaimers, where they don't even tell you what the drug does. He said it was probably the worst thing he ever did in his life, or it was the best. But yeah, Procter Gamble, they are a marketing machine. I mean, you look at all their brands, Pampers, Crest toothpaste, Dawn. I mean, you could just go down the line. In whatever category they're in, they dominate it. And a big part of it is because they just outspend everybody on marketing. It's always been my thesis.
Man. They just spend on advertising and marketing.
Yep.
And I'm sure that there's plenty of discussions over the last 100-something years that they've been doing this, right? Mm-hmm. Of folks going, we can't invest in marketing or advertising. We need to cut that.
This is what small companies don't get. I mean, they are just the worst.
I had a practical experience with this lately as a small company, right? We were doing some direct mail pieces and some other efforts, and we didn't get a lead, really.
Yeah.
And this is after investing, some reasonable amount of money.
It costs money. I mean, any direct mail is going to cost you $1 a piece, whatever you do.
Yeah, we're just not grabbing the leads, right? And the team's kind of disheartened and stuff. But guess what I freaking did not do?
What's that?
Cut the marketing budget.
I know.
And give up.
Yes.
It's like, dude, let's go. Next month, what are we going to do different? What are we going to do different? And by the way, I'm not canceling out the idea that direct mail, is not working. There's might be 100 reasons why it didn't work. I said the first damn thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to go back to the post office and say, give me evidence that you actually put these in people's mailboxes, because I was supposed to be one of the addresses where I lived, and I didn't get the damn thing.
That's a good point. I mean, you got to check on that, right? You seeded it with your own. Yeah, of course, you got to do that with direct mail.
But, you got to audit this stuff.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? So,
but maybe it didn't go out.
I know, but you don't cut the expense.
Yeah.
You don't stop the marketing and advertising.
The thing is, people don't realize, like, somebody that you sent that to 2 weeks from now could be at a meeting where they meet somebody from this company at a Chamber of Commerce event or whatever the hell you guys participate in.
Right.
And they're like, oh, yeah, I did hear about your company. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now you have reduced their risk in hiring you guys.
Well,
you are now going to stand out. It's the only one they're familiar with. They've not heard of anybody else that does what you do.
Right.
To me, it's perfectly analogous to what Geek Squad did.
Yeah.
In the computer repair / networking field, where there was no dominant player in any market.
Yeah.
There were usually like a couple dudes who were stoned in a house on the edge of town, surrounded by junk computers that you would take your stuff to fix it.
That's right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then Geek Squad comes in, and with good branding and advertising, the VWs, the outfits they had with the ties and all that. Mm-hmm. And boom, a couple years later, I think they sold for $600 million to Best Buy.
That's crazy. Hey, and guess what the outfits and the signs on the wraps on the vehicles and the name, that's all marketing.
Of course it is. We call that working visibility.
Yeah. Yeah, and so but to your point, like I was telling the team, like, don't, just because we didn't get a lead and a conversion out of that, it doesn't mean it's wasted.
Exactly.
Like, we still branded.
Yes.
You still impressed your brand into somebody's brain.
Yep.
That's assuming that,
even if it's not conscious, it may be unconscious. They don't even think anything of it, and then they're like, oh, podcast videos, boom, I got it.
Guarantee they could see the DM, or they could see a video or an ad online, and then they're coming over here to Heroes to get coffee,
and they see the sign.
They're like, oh shit, that's where they are.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
going to go check them out.
I know. But see, you understand that.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money. I mean, for a small business to pump money into that, it takes it away from your personal consumption, right? I mean, it's just that simple.
And if you don't get a 7 times return that first day, then you can't stop.
No, I mean, that's ridiculous. But that's the way most people think.
I would actually argue that if it's not working, you need to invest more time, more energy, more attention. You've got to figure it out. You've got to figure out how to get people into the gosh dang door, whether that's a digital or a physical door.
You take my 2 primary businesses that I had, the company that's Zweig Group today and Mark Zweig Inc. And I still benefit and still get constant inquiries on Mark Zweig Inc., even though we've basically gotten completely out of the business because we had such a good brand.
You did have a good brand.
People are like, I want a Mark. Just yesterday, Sonia talks to several people. I want a Mark Zweig house. I'm like, what are you even talking about?
Have we been?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't been doing this for like 4 years.
6, I think.
We're
done, But I mean, but we spent money on stuff that other people wouldn't spend money on. And it was different.
Yep.
And, and Zweig Group, it was entirely built by direct mail and then e-marketing, as you know. But and our competitors are sitting back there going up and down with the economy and not growing. And, some of them came to work for us because they're like, we can't get the work you guys get.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, because we spent, 16% of our revenue on marketing for like the last 15 years in a row. What are you doing?
So that you actually brought up one of the biggest mysteries when it comes to marketing. I get asked this question a lot. It's like, how much do you spend? What's your percentage? And I mean, I've it's all kind of, there's a lot of trade secrets to it, right? Not everybody's going to expose exactly what they're doing, but what I've heard is, and see if you agree with this, but if you're spending 5% of your gross sales on marketing, you're basically just staying in business.
Yep.
If you're spending 10% of your gross sales in marketing, and that includes advertising, right?
Yep.
Then you're competing.
Yeah.
If you spend 20% of your gross sales, then you're freaking dominating.
Exactly. How are you going to grow faster than the market you serve and spend less than everybody else?
Right.
I go through this with my students in their business plans all the time. They've got these great growth curves. We're going to be a $10 million company in 5 years.
Yeah.
What are we spending on marketing? Well, let's see. We spent 1% the first year, and then it declines to 0.25% of revenue by year 5. What does your industry spend? They spend 6%. I'm like, what the hell makes you think this is even remotely realistic?
Because people like us.
Okay. Word of mouth is going to take care of us. We believe word of mouth is the best marketing. I mean, the 2 things you hear, and you already alluded to one of them. We believe word of mouth is the best marketing there is. And we tried that once and it didn't work.
Yep.
Those are the 2 famous last words of failing companies. Okay?
That's right.
I mean, they really are.
Yeah.
Because if you take a bucket of 100 small businesses, Eric, and I see them in my class because I have my students work with a real business. And I'm telling you, this is not an exaggeration. If I take 100 small companies, I'll bet you 2 of them are doing a good job with their marketing and 98 are doing damn near nothing. Now, that's not an exaggeration. Okay?
Like, I can't fathom. Like, and they probably, and when we say marketing, marketing's the big world of it, which is including advertising.
Right. That's promotion, right?
Yeah,
Advertising's part of promotion.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so when you...
I should say promotion. They're not doing any promotion, but they're also not doing a good job with their marketing.
Marketing either. Okay. Yeah, which I think is, like, because to me, if you're not advertising, you're most likely demonstrating that you're promoting, then you're most likely don't even have your foundational marketing components together, which is your logo, your identity, your colors.
Yes.
You got somebody on social. You got somebody that's working your, marketing to me is like.
That's very broad based.
Yeah, it is. But it's also like it's what's your sales presentation like? What are, what's your signage look like?
It's a big part
what
of
are
it.
You doing with your freaking people that come in and your customers? Are you taking those people and are you communicating back out to them about new products and services? That's marketing. This big
every
world.
customer touch point. What do they see when they pull in the parking lot? What do they see when they hit your website?
Yeah.
It's all part of marketing. What do they see when they try to take something back or have a problem?
If you don't invest in that, how the hell are you going to be in business? Let alone and you're not even advertising. You're not promoting yourself out to the.
You got a really great product.
That's how you got to have more than that, baby. You got to let people know about your product.
That's what they all say, though.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It's
you must have a good product, absolutely, but you must have great marketing and advertising. So a myth, one of the biggest myths of marketing is that you don't really need much of it.
Yeah. Or once we get going, we can stop. That's another one.
Down.
That's another one.
Or if it doesn't work, then you stop.
Yeah.
Or there's another big myth is that there's some magic bullet that everybody's doing, and that's what works in marketing.
Right.
Like you can't
copy everybody, or you won't stand out.
No, and I'll tell you this: I've been in marketing for freaking
your whole career.
Yeah, my whole career.
Yeah.
Start this business, and I don't know what the best way to market to my audience is. I have no idea.
Of course you do.
I gotta freaking try.
It's experimentation.
Totally.
Constant experimentation.
Totally. If what worked at my other company is not going to work with this one, what works at this one today doesn't mean it's going to work next month. It's a relentless,
and it's changing. It changed because you may figure out how to do something that really works, and then you're going to have lots of people copying it or coming close to it. Then it becomes less effective.
Yeah.
Then you got to try something else new.
Yeah.
It's so true. I don't know why more people. I think a lot of the problem. Well, there's several problems. One is people think it's all about data. And if you can't quantify the response immediately to show that it's worth it, they pull the plug on it. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. There's no sort of overarching faith that guides them.
Yeah.
The faith is belief in what's unseen. I had a guest speaker in my class this week who talked about that. He goes, a lot of people put it in a religious context, but it's more than that. It's really broader than that. It's just belief in the unseen. Okay. Mm-hmm. In marketing, to be a good marketer, you got to have some faith.
Yeah, you totally do.
Okay. So I think it really starts with that. Mm-hmm. It's not all data driven.
No.
And that's a big, big misconception. But I think the other misconception about it is too, though, that there's no science out there that you can learn from. There's no discipline of marketing. It's like, well, you're either good at that or, you're a good seller. That's why you're successful.
Mm-hmm.
It's all based on your personality or whatever.
Right.
No, there is a science. There is a discipline. There's a lot of knowledge out there that you can tap into.
Yep.
Doesn't mean you're going to copy everybody else, but there are things that people have learned that you can benefit from. And I think it's really interesting. You brought up Procter Gamble today. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think a lot of what I see and try to get people to understand with small businesses is if you want to be competing with the big guys and you want to be more like the big guys and you want to be successful like the big guys, look at what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, look at Procter & Gamble. How are they promoting? Mm-hmm. They're really smart.
Yeah.
Okay. They got a lot of smart people over there that are doing their marketing. Mm-hmm. How can we learn from them and apply that to a business that may be completely unrelated to what they do?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
I think there's a lot more sort of crossover out there that's potentially exists. Part of it is just the freaking budget.
Sure.
I mean, there's just no doubt about it.
And so when you got somebody like any big company, like for example, P&G, right? Like how are you going to, if they're dominating with their spend, they're everywhere. Yeah. And so if you're a competing brand, then how do you navigate that? That might, there is like what P&G and a lot of these big companies do not do is guerrilla type marketing.
I know, that's the truth. Yes.
And so you as a smaller brand or a smaller company, you have to be in guerrilla type marketing. And one of the things, and like what you can do is the number one thing you do in guerrilla type marketing is show up.
Yes.
You've got to show up. It means what guerrilla marketing means is you're taking time, you're spending time instead of spending money.
Yep. I think that's really a good definition. And you're so right about that. I think the other thing you got to do too is you've got to narrow your audience down.
Yes.
So you can do guerrilla marketing. Okay. I mean, we could sit here and talk about podcast videos all day. You know, I met with Parker earlier this week, and I know you got a meeting coming up that unfortunately I can't be at.
Yeah.
But there's so many different markets that you can pursue. You got to say, okay, which one of these am I really going to try first to make a serious run at? Because there's like 10 different markets that you could go after. And I think a small company's got to narrow down its target. We're not Procter Gamble, right? We can sell Crest to anybody.
Sure.
Everybody needs freaking toothpaste. Okay. And, you know, most businesses, you could build a case that a lot more people need them than are doing business with them. But, everybody needs, just because everybody needs something doesn't mean that's the way to market it. When you don't have a lot of resources, you got to focus in. And, you're talking about guerrilla marketing today. You just brought that up, which is great because we were just talking about that this morning, Grant and Richard and myself.
Oh, really?
Via text. And, so one of the things with Janus Motorcycles is we know we sell a lot of bikes to older motorcycle owners that have a lot of motorcycles. So I got on like the old motorcyclist Facebook page. All right. And, they're all talking about how their freaking Harleys are so big they can't ride them anymore, but they still want to ride something. They want something lighter, but it's cool looking, whatever. Every time I hear that, I just plug Janus. Every single time. Okay. I send them, here's a bike we have right now. Here's something you ought to look at. This only weighs 350 pounds, yada, yada, yada. And it's just like surgically. And then for every one of those old motorcyclist sites, there's 10 more of those. Okay. And you just sit there. Yeah, it takes time. But you know what? You're going to gain some new followers. You're going to gain some new buyers. You're going to get some new interest. Every one of those people that you stick out there, when 10,000 other people see that, who knows where that goes? There's a long purchase decision time. It takes like a year or two. Okay. So you're planting the seeds out there.
What I like about what you're saying is that's what I would like. There's two types of guerrilla marketing that exists, right? You got a physical guerrilla marketing, then you have your digital guerrilla marketing. What you're talking about is spending time online. Which you have to go find those wormholes. Where those audience collections?
And
where's participate in conversation. Provide value back to them. Like you can't just like that.
It's not just selling.
No, you can't place a banner ad into the forum and expect people to convert and watch the data and then say, "Oh, that forum doesn't work." That's not how it works in guerrilla marketing. You got to get in, engage, add value, participate. You got to show up in that area. And then you're starting to get some, that's what guerrilla marketing
is.
Then
you get some credibility. And then you set the stage to.
Boom. Click it. It's the same way on the physical side. You go sign up for the Chamber of Commerce. And then you put an ad in the freaking newsletter. And you're like, oh, the chamber doesn't work. No, that's not how you do guerrilla marketing.
You got
to get involved. You sit on committees. Make decisions. Go show up and you're putting out the freaking silverware for the big event. Like you have to be on the ground showing up. That's how you do that. And then what's great about guerrilla marketing is, especially if you have a local business that you're trying to sell in a geographic area, like your opportunities come out even greater.
Sure.
Like I've walked in this morning, I was talking about our little postcards on one of our campaigns, our Christmas greeting card campaign, where basically you come in, instead of sending all your friends like a picture of you and your family in the mail, you send them a link that comes to a video that you did in our studio, and you get to see your kids talking. I know, isn't that awesome?
I love that.
Everybody loves that.
Yeah, especially when you get all these people that you don't see, that no longer live here. You don't live where they are.
How precious is it for an aunt to see, your kids that are like 10, 12. I mean, they don't get to see them. And you can see them in video.
That's a wonderful idea.
That's the power of video, right?
Yeah,
so it's a great idea. But I love what Bob said. Bob up front, right? Yeah. He's our stoic in the office, But he's like, hey, man, why don't we just take a stack of those, go put them on people's windows on their cars? Go, baby.
Start right here.
Right here in the damn park.
We got all these business people and people around here. You go to the coffee shop over there. I know like half the people in there, and so do you. And there's a lot of movers and shakers over there.
It's freaking bow.
Yeah, I know.
I bet you would get probably all the business we need to get out of that just by doing that here.
It's the same thing. My wife is starting to work with a friend of ours who has a landscape business here. And, he was a big corporate guy who moved out of corporate when he retired, and he bought a franchise in this landscape business. And I'm like, door hanging tags. My God, how about let's show a picture. Here's a yard before, and here it is after. Okay, we go in, we cut down all those bad shrubs. Yeah. We clean up all their beds full of weeds. Just keep showing before, after, before, after, before, after. Hang them on their door.
Yep.
All right? It's brilliant.
Door hangers are, that's like, I remember back in the day when I was doing those, like you could get 5,000 of them for like $130 freaking.
I know.
But guess what you got to do when they come? You got to go walk around the damn doors.
Yeah, exactly. But you can go to the affluent neighborhoods. You can target so well with that.
Yeah.
We're not just hanging them on anybody's door. We're hanging them on the doors of the people who are going to spend money on that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what, I saw the other day, I thought was really great. I called her when I saw it. My wife, I wasn't at home, obviously. I was driving around. I saw a sign for a landscape company that said, all electric, we're the quiet company. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, how brilliant is that?
Just hit some sort of little thing.
Just a niche right there. It's just a little different. Nobody else has done that yet.
Yeah, man.
I thought that's brilliant.
They're doing all electric mowers or whatever.
Mowers, blowers, weed eaters, everything.
Don't even hear them.
Yeah. Because a lot of, my brother, I was talking to him one day, and he's like, all these people live around me, they're also noisy, but, constantly blowing and grooming, because he's in a really nice area where everybody has a $4 million house or whatever. Mm-hmm. He goes, that's all you hear all day.
Blowers and weed eaters. And blow mowers.
But I mean, the quiet company. Yeah. Wouldn't it be great? I mean,
they could totally take over an entire upscale neighborhood like that. And guess what? That's the best thing a landscaping maintenance company could ever wish for.
I know.
Is you have yard after yard in that
concentrated in one area.
You just
reduces your travel time, baby. Yeah.
That's good.
You just dominate. But again, it's niche marketing.
Yep.
It's focusing on a narrower audience, because we can't be, the landscape company for the whole United States, right?
Right.
I mean, and so you narrow your audience. You get creative, you try stuff, you pick a niche, what makes you different, and lo and behold, you're probably going to be successful. There's no magic in that.
And let's talk about that niche thing, because I don't want people to get confused. That doesn't mean, like for your example with our company, we have 10 different audiences that we can hit. What it doesn't mean is that we only, as a business, focus on that one niche. What it means is that we initiate a marketing campaign.
Exactly.
And lean into that niche. Build that puppy up. You learn how to fine-tune that niche, then you can move to the second one.
Yeah, you can be a multi-niche provider. Yeah. Absolutely. But a lot of people don't understand that. I'm really glad you said that, because then it means like, well, somebody comes in that's not in that niche, and we just say no. No, it doesn't have to be that at all.
I can't remember the amount of times that's happened to me.
Yes.
Well, we don't do that kind of business anymore. No.
Yeah.
I've never said that, bro.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we may not be the best at it the first time we do it, but we're sure as hell willing to try.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you have 4 people showing, if you tell that one person no, they're going to say, oh, they don't do that. Now you're doing negative guerrilla marketing, right?
Amen to that.
But if you say yes and they say, well, I did do it, and they did all right.
Yeah.
You might have an opportunity to do more of that. You don't know where your income.
You've got to experiment. I mean, it's so true today. Where it's like, you got to be willing. We talked a little bit about this with our business planning in last week's episode. Mm-hmm. That you can come up with a plan, but until you actually start doing it, you don't really know where things are going to go. And you got to be fleet. You got to be willing to pivot. We need to come up with like a really good, like sound effect for that. Yeah. You got to be willing to pivot. What would the noise be? Ding, ding, and make a change based on the reaction you're getting from the market, which is another really important part of marketing.
Yeah.
I mean,
just
because we do something and it, quote, doesn't work, doesn't mean we just keep doing that exact same thing over and over.
That's insanity.
Yeah. We try something different.
And you might be completely taken aback about how little a difference could make is your price. Is it the way you said your price?
Yes.
Is it, like, was the picture of before and after in there? Because that could completely trigger response.
We were just talking about this today. Again, I have to keep going back to Janus Motorcycles because I work, there with them constantly. And what I was saying is I think we need to start taking photos of our bikes from a different perspective or in a different scene. All our bike photography is fantastic.
Yeah.
If you look at it, it's great. The lighting is consistent. The position is consistent. We take the same perspectives, okay? We've got the best documented production of everything that we've ever done, all right? But when you keep seeing these bikes like that from the same perspective over and over and over, maybe it's a different bike.
Yeah.
It doesn't get the attention the same way.
Yeah.
I might just focus on something completely different and flip that thing around and have this close up.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it's something different.
Yeah.
Maybe that would work. It's an experiment.
You got to keep trying it, man.
Yep. It's just a constant experimentation. But the point is, we're thinking about this stuff. We're not just sitting there going, we make the best product and word of mouth is going to make us successful. Okay.
That's right.
And we tried that once and it didn't work. We went to a show once and nobody bought a bike or whatever. No.
Mm-hmm.
No.
You can't say, I don't believe in email marketing. I don't believe in pay-per-click. I don't believe in all. You can't say you don't believe. You have to try. And then just because it doesn't work one time means you can go back to it.
I mean, I think a really good marketing campaign has a lot of different elements going simultaneously. Mm-hmm. That's another thing I've seen small companies do. Here's an example. I used to work with a lot of architects, as you know.
Yeah.
And I would say, sometimes they would produce a brochure that's 32 pages with an onion skin cover and all that. Of course, it costs $4 to make.
Sure.
It's $4 to mail it or whatever. You go, too much information.
Yeah.
Let's break this down, okay? Let's send out one photo on a really good postcard every week instead of this thing once a year.
That's right.
They don't pay attention to how consumer product companies market. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with newsletters. Everybody's got a newsletter. We do a once a month newsletter. We do a once a quarter newsletter. It's 27 pages. It's a magazine. Forget all that, okay? Cut it down. Mm-hmm. Send out an email. It's something short. People's attention spans are short. Mm-hmm. They're not going to read your big thing or watch your too long video or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I said it's the same reason why Coca-Cola's got 1 million 15 or 30-second commercials instead of we're going to buy 1 hour of the Super Bowl and put it on NBC once a year to sell our product.
That's right. That's exactly right. And you want to tease them. You want them to be. All you're trying to do is get their attention, because that's what marketing and advertising is. You're distracting them from whatever they're doing.
Attention, interest, desire, action. To quote, I think that was Alec Baldwin in Glenn Ross.
Yeah. Glenn Ross. That's a classic.
Oh, that's an absolute classic.
ABC.
Always be closing.
That's right. Coffee's for closers, bro.
That's right. Put that coffee down, Jack Lemmon.
Put that coffee down.
My watch costs more than your car.
What a great scene. But it's so true. Another thing that that we were talking about earlier that I thought is really important for small business is, and you kind of mentioned it, like where you say no. Like no, like you get this advice, you got to be willing to say no as a business owner, right? I think when you're in small business and you're in marketing, you can't say, no, we don't do that. You don't have the luxury in the beginning to say no to a lot. You should actually be saying yes.
And figure out how the hell to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
99% of times. No was not my vocabulary with my first business.
This is a difference to me in entrepreneurial owners versus like managers. Mm-hmm. Okay? We all want to say yes to everything because we want every revenue dollar we can get our hands on.
That's right, baby.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And then once you start hiring professional management, the next thing they want to do is kill this, kill that, kill this, kill that. I'm like, where's the overhead going to go that we are now spreading out to all these things that ostensibly don't make money, but we make money as a company overall.
Right.
Okay?
That's right.
I'm not going to be that easy to kill that. Okay? I don't know what the sale of that leads to.
Exactly.
That may lead to a sale of something we do make a boatload of money on.
So I got a great story back in the early White Spider days. It's classic. I actually have witnesses to it, which makes it even better. So
yeah, it does.
Lying.
Right.
So
You're not bullshit anyway.
Yeah, no, try not to. I might come across as a bullshitter though, so people. But anyway, sitting there, client comes to our office, and they're like, "Hey, we're working for this major brand." You know, we weren't doing any major brand work there. We're doing really small. I mean, this is really exciting, right? It's a well-known global brand.
Hey, you started out working for Zweig White. And
yeah, man.
You said, I want to work for consumer product companies. I remember you and I had a conversation in the car about that. I'm like, you sure about that? That's not what you know anything about. Right. You're like, I don't care. That's where the money is. That's where the action is here.
Yeah, and we're right
in the heart of it.
We're in the heart of it.
You said that then, and boy, were you ever right.
Yeah. And so one of the first opportunities we had, they had this group come in. We're in this rundown freaking office, whatever, and then and these clients are going, yeah, so can you guys do FSIs? And I go, yes, absolutely.
I don't know what FSIs are.
Huh?
I don't know what that is.
So anyway, I'll let you know. Like I was like, yes, absolutely. He's like, okay, so great, good to hear, because we do have an FSI need. And we need to do it by this date, and we're going to do this much distribution on it, and we're going to, we need it to go here and there and all this kind of stuff in these geographies across the nation. I'm like, man, no problem. Sounds great. I was like, I'll tell you what, let us get a quote together for you. It might take a few days, and I can get you a quote, and, in the full shebang, and we can turnkey that for you. No problem. It's definitely down something we can do. He's like, sounds great. Shook hands, walked out. They left, and I looked over at my designer. I go, what the hell's an FSI? Literally said, what the hell? He's like, and he looks at me. It was Wiley. Remember Wiley?
Yeah, Wiley.
Wiley looks at me and goes, freestanding insert. I'm like, oh, what's that mean? And he's like, the things that go in the Sunday newspaper, all the ads. I'm like, oh, yeah, we can do that. You know what I did, though?
That's hysterical. I thought you were going to say you had a couple of your other people in there and they started looking real worried, discouraged, or...
No, there's this guy. Total smoke and mirror, right? But I was like, but I knew that was a big project. I knew it could get us into that market.
Yep.
And, a lot of times, like when people in that situation, they're coming to a company that we do marketing, we do advertising, we know relatively this entire ecosystem.
Yeah, right. I get it.
I mean, a lot of this shit isn't really complicated.
Right.
You just try to do a little bit more of this and a little bit less of that.
Yeah.
And so, but immediately that day I started calling. Like I called some folks I knew that were working in the vendor community and stuff, and I was like, "Hey, I need you to let's go have lunch.
Yeah,
let's go get a coffee.
Give me the intel.
Give me the intel. What the hell?" Then I found, dude, that is really complicated, right? So your FSIs you're talking about, they have barcodes on them. There's a lot of legal disclaimers. I mean, there's a lot of rules to it.
So there's stuff that you had to learn.
Hell yeah, man. I cram-packed it, and for 3 weeks, I became an FSI expert.
Yeah.
And then I sold the job, made good money, put me into a new market, and now I have a portfolio piece, and I go slap it down my next meeting. Hey, check out this FSI we did for such and such brand. They're like, oh, that's really good work. Thank you.
Exactly. I know.
Yeah, it was 50, we went to 50 million people. I mean, that's the kind of work we do here at our company.
Exactly. I love it. I mean, it's so true.
Yeah, man. So,
yeah.
But that's kind of, that's what you got to do, I think, as a small business.
I do too. I mean, do you think maybe part of the problem is that a lot of the founders of small businesses are people who are good at something or have an interest in something, but they didn't come out of a marketing background. So, and I use the example of this landscape company that is owned by a friend of ours. I mean, the guy was a CPA, and then he got into consumer product, product management and stuff like that. I mean, he really did broaden out from his public accounting background dramatically. Right. But I mean, it's not necessarily comes from a marketing background of a small, so you think that affects a lot of these small businesses?
I do, because I think that an entrepreneur has to be if I was to sum up what I think an entrepreneur really is, they're campaigners. Mm-hmm. Meaning that they're not salespeople, they're not marketers, they're they're not inventors. They don't have to be inventors, right? But they do have to campaign. Mm-hmm. And so everything, and then we talk about the life work balance and all that, and you say integration, and I agree, because everywhere that I would go, and I still do it, I talk about my business. I'm always campaigning. I'm always I got a brand on my hat at all times.
Oh, yeah.
I always got something. And I want you to ask me about what does that mean? Right. Hey, what are you doing nowadays? I'm campaigning. Yeah. I don't go, well, I'm working over at a place next to Heroes Coffee. And, and I'm like, I start telling them about what we do. And next thing you know, I'm like campaigning and exciting them about what's going on. Yeah. And so I think that if you come from any kind of industry to where like your job is not campaigning, mm-hmm. like I would think that some of the best entrepreneurs could be like, like the event coordinators or somebody that's like really like putting on something that's requiring some.
It's got a deadline. Vision. It's got a big build up to it. And
it's got chaos all around it, and you got to be able to handle that. Uh-huh. You know, and I mean, that's really, like, I do think that I don't think you have to come to the table knowing marketing. You just got to come to the table relentlessly wanting to market.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not necessarily a lot of knowledge needed, but a lot of commitment.
Yeah. Energy.
A lot of focus.
Yeah. Just dying with it, man.
Yeah.
And I think that would be like, what I've experienced with like folks that are like either, technically sound or strategic or, have a lot of, the reasonable side of their brain at work in their fields, is that there is no formula for it.
Yep.
And you have to be willing to basically go out into uncharted waters, and you have to go against your fear. I think that's why, honestly, like I've been wanting to do an episode, and I was going to talk to you about it, but what is the emotional intelligence required as an entrepreneur? Because to me, I really feel like, and any entrepreneurs that I've researched and said, even you, there's an emotional part to it where that's superseding a lot of logic on a regular basis and a long-term basis.
Yeah, I think your definition of emotional intelligence is different from what most people think of. They think of like, how tuned in are you to other people, and how do you interact with other people? For you, it's more of like, how emotionally involved and committed are you versus letting the rationality take over.
Yeah.
In a way. Isn't that right?
No, that's
what
right.
You think.
I think that.
That's
I think
different.
There's an external and internal component. And the way I'm thinking, too, is like the emotional intelligence of how do I not allow my emotions or my fears to squash the whole
point, too.
Yeah. How do you handle
my dad, my late father, his whole thing, and he worked in advertising and management consulting his whole life. He was a brilliant guy. But his thing was that fear of death is at the core of what holds everybody back from taking risks. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's not just like, do I skydive or not? Mm-hmm. It's like, do I go into this business? Do I spend money on marketing that I don't know is going to pay back? Mm-hmm. It's like, if you can confront that, if you're okay with that, that you could die tomorrow, and it's not the end of the world, basically, then you are liberated.
I agree.
To be a real entrepreneur.
It's fun. Like, I've seriously considered that a lot of times, because like you gotta take things like, there's been multiple times where I feel so overwhelmed, and you have to get another perspective of like, is this really that big of a deal? Or when you face the greatest fears of all, like dying, then it does liberate you to recognize like, this is all, it's just like,
right.
Like, what do you fear?
Yeah, this is nothing. I just watched a good movie the other night with my wife. I think it was called Afterlife or something like that. It was done by a bunch of New York Times reporters who interviewed all these people who'd had near-death experiences, or they were, quote, technically dead and came back.
Yeah.
And, for the most part, the commonality across all of them was fascinating. It was not a bad experience for
it's
them.
beautiful. It's
They
liberating.
said they felt better than they ever, like they float up. They can see themselves down there.
There was this
They were
light.
surrounded by love.
Love and light.
Okay. Some of them had a religious context to it because I think that's what their mind was wrapped around.
Yeah.
Other people just felt the love, and it was just wild.
And they always talk about this light.
Yes.
This beautiful light.
Yes. Anyway, so once you see all that, you're like, that's not so bad. You know,
Right.
I can go out here and deal with this guy that owes me $18,000 a month that's not paying me right now. Okay.
That's really not that big of a deal.
I understand that. I'm going through that. Yeah.
There you go.
But no.
Big talk about small business. If you've learned about facing death, you're welcome.
Hey, we need to move on. Though.
You got two things. You got to do your Zweig hat.
Oh gosh.
And then we got to do the.
We're going to do these really fast.
Yeah,
okay?
we got to.
The Zweig hat. I'm going to pull it out today.
Okay.
Life coaches.
Oh no! Why? That was intentionally put in there to cause a response. Tell us about life coaches.
Oh, please. Come on, buddy. You mean these people who are chronically unemployed and go through a training program to be life coaches, and now they're going to tell me how to operate my life? I have absolutely no faith in them whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say it. I mean, again, my general philosophy is whether it's business advice or life advice, they better have their shit together better than me. I don't accept that some training program you spent $4,000 for and went through is online is going to make you help me be more successful in my life. I just have a real problem with that.
Well, I think you have a problem because I have the same problem of is like I take advice for people that I'm aspiring to be in their position.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I'm saying?
You have
they
some
got
real respect for something
I
that
consider
they've
them
accomplished.
mentors.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't.
I'm just very skeptical. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fair.
So be careful who you take advice from. And I've had clients and friends who got these life coaches, and I have to say that most of the time I didn't see them become more successful or better able to manage their lives afterward. But anyway, there could be some good ones.
A lot of the times, like if I was a life coach, you know what I probably would say? I'd say you need to work harder.
Yeah, I know.
You need to. There's a few
Work
things.
hard and be nice. Okay, how hard is that?
It's not hard.
There's the success formula. Yeah. Just be nice.
Do
to
what you
people.
say you're going to do.
Right.
Ready to level up your show? At podcastvideos.com, we offer industry-leading recording and expert marketing to help your show reach more listeners. From creation to distribution, we've got you covered. Visit podcastvideos.com and elevate your podcast today.
You know, I mean, it's pretty much the same. Work harder, work faster, work longer, work smarter. I don't know, but all of them work. You can do one of the four, and you'll get your ass out of your life need of coaching scenario.
Yeah.
Because you're designed to work.
Yeah, I know. I've not ever brought anybody into my classes who is a successful entrepreneur to speak who didn't say that they didn't work their ass off, especially early on. If you want to get to where you don't have to work your butt off, you got to start out early with a really high energy level and get ahead as soon as you possibly can. And getting ahead is money, but it's also experience. It's life experience.
And there's your life coaching. You want to get coached, go through experiences.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we're done with that.
Yeah. LinkedIn Hall of Shame. Do you have one?
LinkedIn Hall of Shame. I do have one that, again, I mean, I hate to keep picking on the same stuff here. But it just comes to me every time. I love these AI generated questions. Your team member is feeling isolated in a remote setting. How can you reconnect and support them effectively? Now, Greg Long, he said, tell him he's on his own. See if that helps. If not, fire him. I mean, I like this guy's comments, but I don't really agree with that. I mean, if they're feeling
Pretty
love,
extreme.
yeah, it's your job to talk to them. Okay, you've got to spend time. You've got to invest time in people who are located remotely. It can't all be via text. Mm-hmm. You got to make some phone calls. Mm-hmm. You know, you gotta connect with them. Maybe you got to see them sometime, face to face. But it comes down to your time and your investment in continuing to sell them on the vision of what you're trying to do, and why it's going to be good for them if you do it. Mm-hmm. And you've got to tell them, you got to show them appreciation. Yeah. You got to give them acknowledgement for what they're doing and how they're contributing, and reinforce that. But I don't know any other way around it other than just spending time. You can't just demand that they are engaged.
No. And you know, the thing is I think what's key is that you recognize that. Like, you need to be, I'm always watching the people in my circle, right? In my network, the people I love and care for, which includes the people that I work with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
My team. Yeah. And if I see somebody, you can sense it. Like there's something off.
Yes.
And I can't, hundreds of times I've closed doors and I said, hey, you doing okay?
Yeah.
How are you doing? How's things going? And almost every time.
Because you're reading the signs.
Yeah. They're like, man, I tell you, I've got a lot of stuff going on at home. I'm like, well, man, I mean, share with me about it. Let's go get some lunch. Let's have some coffee. Yeah. You just talk to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Give them some, because we're all here to pick each other up.
I mean, I do think, too, that remote workers bear some of the responsibility for seeking that out and making the connection and the calls themselves, instead of just saying, well, my boss never calls me, so I'm not going to call them. Because that's bullshit, too. Mm-hmm. I mean, just like today on the way up here, I called my department chair at the Walden College because I just hadn't talked to him for a while. Yeah. It's like, what's going on, man? How are you doing? How are we doing on our hiring?
Yeah. Check in.
Yeah. Just because he hasn't contacted me and reached out doesn't mean I shouldn't reach out to him.
No, totally.
We work together. We're on the same team.
Love that. I love that. I wish more of my folks would reach out to me. I've actually told them, I'm like, I never hear from y'all.
Yeah, I know.
And I think, on the working remote, that I think that people have to be very cautious with that. Like, I get it. There's certain fields like where you can focus. Like, hey, I do it sometimes. I worked from home yesterday.
Yeah.
But I spent 6 hours deep diving into something. I got something done.
Yeah.
And I needed that focus time. But guess what? I'm back out in the scene.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I need other human beings in my life.
Of course. It's just, we can't just go fully remote and see each other on screens. And don't tell me that your employees like it better. Sure, they don't want to commute. They don't want to have to get dressed. And they probably don't want to have to work as many hours as they do when they go to the damn office.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I think each individual they need to wake up out of this whole pandemic mentality and recognize that you are a freaking human being.
Yeah.
And since the dawn of time, it doesn't matter what you believe in, we've been together. Yeah. And you've had a community. Community is so important in a physical community. And it's not just people that you're with at home. It's people that you labor with. It's people that you work together with. That's your team. That's majority of your life. And if you isolate yourself from that, now all you people you see are your family, and you don't get to see other people with different talents and convictions and all the things that you need for your diversity.
Look, we got to wrap this thing up, dude. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Hopefully we've convinced some people that they need to spend a lot more time and money on their marketing if they want to be successful in business. That's all I can say.
Yep.
Okay? It's got to be one of your major focuses.
Totally.
All right? You do what you got to do. You'll be rewarded with a company that's more valuable, that's larger, that's more profitable, that creates better jobs and gets better prices for anything you do. Mm-hmm. If you do that, okay, you'll have a better life. Everything's going to be better.
And just think about P&G. They marketed and advertised.
Yeah.
Their faces off.
Learn from other people who've done it really well.
Yeah.
Or companies that have done it really well.
It's not because
doesn't mean we copy everything they do, but learn from them.
Well, it's not because Ivory soap floated to the top that made it the best soap.
Yeah.
It's because it floated to the top and then they went out and ridiculously announced it to everybody.
Yeah.
That's what made it become known.
Yep. So we're going to wrap it up here. Happy Halloween to all.
Scary week, man.
Yeah. Don't eat too much candy. Steal your kids the stuff that you like that they have. Trade them out of it. Do whatever you have to do.
Wait till they're going to sleep.
Yeah.
And sneak in and steal stuff out of their pumpkin. Like a man would.
Yeah. And hey, if you buy candy for trick-or-treaters and you live in a place where you don't know like how many are going to come, get stuff you like.
Yeah.
Because then when it's still left over, you got some good candy.
That's right. That's exactly right, man. There's so many great things you can do this week, and we wish you the
really
best.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Until next week, this has been another episode of Big Talk About Small Business.
Business.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk About Small Business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.